Hello, this is Ken, and this is part 3 of building the Fifie, the Scottish fishing motorboat. And for those of you who don't know me, I started off my video making with the first boat I've ever made, which was okay. I liked it. And as I progressed through the 6 or 7 boats I build, 6 on YouTube and 1 on my own, I've gotten a little bit better. But now I'm a kind of a novice, and you can watch a novice build a boat, and maybe you can learn from that. So with that short introduction, let's get into part 3 where I'm going to plank the deck, and then maybe part 4 will be where I build some of the cabin assembly and the mast, or I'll do that all at once. I'm not sure what my plan is. But for the moment, it's another long, tedious task of laying all these planks and getting all this trim on the side and maybe the cap rail and a few things like that. And then there's some meticulous work that needs to be done on the deck. That's why I'm thinking it might be part 4. So let's get on with the build. The instructions say to lay these 1x3s down first in the various places that's required around these openings where the companionway is and the skylight and another one here, the rope locker, I guess. And you want to make sure that these fit just right along the hole, and I made them sort of just a little inside the lip, and that they make a nice 45-degree angle. That was a little tricky for me, because I don't seem to have any appropriate tools for these smaller pieces. And then you want to make sure they're in line so they're in parallel with the planks that are going to be laid and athwartships as well. So that's what I've done, and I'll finish this up and then I'll start laying the planks. So here I am just starting the process. I've laid several planks and these 1/32 by 1/32 caulking lines, pieces of wood that look like caulking. And they're wider on one side than they are the other, and you want the tall side up, and therefore they're more narrow in between the caulking. And you got to cut them right to length. And I ended up having trouble with this thing being a little bit slanted. It didn't look too bad. The boat's kind of curved this way and curved that way, and it's hard to find a straight line, but after a little while I did it. You trim the bow up and you put it in. And you go to put it in place, and you can see the wood is curved on top of that. But it's just a matter of laying a little glue down and holding it down. So I'm using some thick instant glue, thick being that it dries slowly so you can set it and pick it up and set it again. And I put some drops underneath, and then I lay both these in at once, and then squeeze this up and wait a little bit. And there's a little gap here, but I think there's going to be some wood on top, so I push all these forward, and it makes a smaller gap up front, which will be covered by the wood that goes over it, and then some posts. And so it's a matter of getting these all straight. So I've really worked hard, spent a lot of time getting my line straight. Some master craftsmen online that do this, zip, 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 look pretty good. But for me, it takes a lot of thinking, and here I am. So just an update, I've finished planking the deck up here. And I studied the drawings, and it looks to me like it'd be handy to have this trim around here. Some of the pictures in the manual show this existing, some don't. So I wasn't sure which way it was, but that's what I've elected to do. And now I'm starting the aft planking. I'll have to cut this little piece here and lay it in. I've already cut this piece. It almost fits. I'll trim it up, and we'll come around and go down, and then we'll finish planking the deck. And as I come to the stern and lay the planks, I ran out of this caulking wood. There's 1 mil by 1 mil pieces, of walnut. This is my last piece. I have a couple scraps left over. I've been very careful with it, but I'm done. So I'm unable to plank anymore. I thought about stealing some of the wood for future builds. Maybe there's extra left over and cutting it down, but then I decided that may not be so smart. So I looked around and finally found a place that would sell this small stuff. It's a little bit different size. I hope it's a similar color. We'll find out. It's on order. So I'm done planking for the moment. So I've turned my attention to the deck equipment. So I've started working on the deck equipment on the top. So far I built the engine room skylight in the stern, and I'm now working on the companionway skylight up in the bow. And after that, I'll work on the superstructure and the wheelhouse, and hopefully the wood will come by then. Otherwise, it'll be the rigging, the lines and the masts and everything. We'll have to see. I think it's going to be like 2 weeks before it comes, so we'll see how far I can get on this, on the deck aspect of it. I found all the wooden parts for the front skylight assembly, cut them out from that sheet of wood, sanded all of the char from the laser cut, and sanded down the little nubs that hold it onto that sheet. There must be a name for those little barnacles. I don't know what they are, but they're now gone. And the instructions show to paint them, and that's what I shall do next. I then stained this wood with a black cherry, which was a mistake. I should have been using the dark walnut, but that's okay. It'll look okay. And then after it dried, about an hour and a half later, I sealed it with this polyurethane satin. And it's drying at the moment, and it'll be dry shortly. And then I'll dig out these little grills and glue them on the louvers there and assemble it. I bought this little corner clamp thinking it would make it easier to make my pilot house and skylights and stuff easier to keep square. But these parts are so tiny, they keep bouncing in and out. And every time I go to adjust the clamp, they jump. See that? They just fell over. But overall, I think I like it. I don't know. There we go. So now, I think that's about the right size. And those are fairly square. Now I got to pull them back out and glue them and put it back in and let it dry. There. That's it assembled. So I cut these parts out, and now I'm going to glue them on. Actually, I'm going to sand these off. They call them tabs. Putting this superstructure together was a little complicated, not too bad. This has a curve here, as you can see, and then you got to put these four corners on, and they got these little divots in here where the top part rests on here, and I'll show you that in a second. See, and with this curve and these corners, you want it to be square. So I had to have these squares here, and I put a little super glue in each corner. And I clamped one half last night, and I'm clamped the other half this morning, and I'll let it dry a little bit. And there's a piece that goes across. It fit pretty good. I had to sand a little bit of the corners off here, as much as sanding around the corners there. I'd say 1/2 millimeter or less in the back part. I'd say maybe a 1/2 millimeter or a millimeter off of this stick came out too far. And then up here was just the edges of the maybe glue, or I didn't quite meet well, but whatever it was, it took a little trimming there, and then both on the corners and a little bit here and there, and it fit in there real nice and tight. So this is the frame for the superstructure we constructed, and then I got all the parts like the cladding or the surrounding part that is the visible part, and we put the pilot house on and so forth, and I painted that or stained it. And I'm going to assemble it, and then I'm going to seal it with a sealer. So here it is, all assembled. I found that some of the wood was white showing, so I've had to go back and recolor some. Now let's see if I can get it into the boat. There we go. A nice tight fit. I was a little worried about this gap here, but I guess we put a trim piece along there, and that covers that up, and it fits real nice along that edge. There was pulled these little pieces out for the companionway, and I was sanding off the tabs, and I told myself to be careful, get the char off and everything, and I broke it in 3 places. Oh, I should listen to myself more often. And now when I glue them back together, they don't fit very well. I've had to sand them down a little bit. It must be because the glue has expanded them or something. I don't know, but I'll get it back in. No. While waiting for my additional wood to show, I worked on the superstructure for the cabin and the skylights and the companionways. Well, my wood finally came in. 1/32 by 1/32 did the job, and I finished it. I ordered some other sizes while I was at it to be efficient with my shipping. And there I finished my deck, and I'm getting ready to plank along the side here. So in preparation of laying these planks along the side here, I sanded them with a 220, then 400 grit, and then I sealed them with this Tester's dull coat, which I seem to be using everywhere. And while I was at it, I sealed the deck as well, so that I didn't have to seal it later on while it was open and available. And I make sure that the bottom is laying flat all along the deck. I use the tight bond glue. It stays stickier a little longer than the super glue, and but it takes a little longer to dry where you can put stress on it. And before long we're going to put another layer on top, and then we're going to sand. And I want that glue to be good and dry. So this kind of due at the end of the day. Okay, so I just laid on the second plank here and clipped it on. It's not glued yet. And as you can see from this side, it sticks up quite a bit here because the distance is much shorter than the 2 planks together. But as you go towards the center of the boat here, only a little bit sticks up. So it's like non-uniform. And the same thing, the gap gets bigger there. So what I have chosen to do is take a pencil and mark a line along here, and then remove some of this before I glue it on so I don't have to do so much sanding. There's a very little glue surface here, and that would just put stress, and so to pre-cut it makes sense to me. As you can see here in the bow, there's only a need for about a 1 1/4 plank, whereas towards the center of the boat or the waist, it's more like 1 3/4 plank is needed. There's a curve to the boat, and you don't need a whole 2 planks. And since there's only just a little bit glue, only a little bit of surface area to glue here, if I was to glue this on and then sand this off, there'd be a lot of vibration associated with removing that. So I've chosen to cut this off manually with an X-Acto blade, leaving a bit of a margin. And then when I glue this on, I only have to sand a little bit. I don't know what tools work best for you, but I do know my bench grinder, circular grinder, didn't work so good. It grabbed the plank and kind of gouged it. So those powerful tools can damage your hardware. At least they damaged mine. Even the Dremel's kind of iffy because it's still powerful, but it's a little smaller and easier to control. I like to work with each of my tools, see where their best zone of performance is. The Dremel, the sanders, the knives, not the belt sander, nor the disc sander. Mine are too large. I don't know if you can see that. That actually is pretty flush. And I'm going to work my way down the rest of the boat. So I think you can see here, there's one whole plank along here, and then the second plank's kind of thick and it thins up to here. And now I've got them, there's still a little bit left here, but they're pretty much smooth with the outside. So that when you put the top rail on, it looks like it fits. Yeah, a little fine adjustment. So the next step will be not this. So the next step will be to put these timbers in. Looks to be about 90 of them, and I put them all the way around. But even before then, I got to put these bow brackets in. But they don't quite fit, and they're made of MDF. So I could stain them, I suppose, but I'll probably have to paint them. The stern bracket didn't seem to fit at all, so I manufactured my own, and it seems to fit pretty good. And it was the same with the bow bracket. It didn't quite fit the bow at all, so I manufactured my own piece. The next task is to put in these timbers. I made a little shim, 12 millimeters wide, and I mark where I want the next timber to be. And then I assure that the timber will lay next to the gunwale, nice and square. Some of these lean out a little bit, so you got to shim the bottom up, but this one's nice and square. And then I get my one long piece, and I lay it where I want it, and I mark it with a pencil. And I cut it to length. Little tight bond on the bottom. Super glue on the inside. And drop it in place. Boy, that took a while. I got those timbers in place, finally, on the next step. So I fitted the inner railing in on both sides, and the one piece falls a little short, as you can see here. But I can put the last piece in later. Then I glued the railing to each post,
and I got it fairly flat. I'm happy with that. And now I've been experimenting with holes, hole size. I decided to drill the hole the size of the nail. It kind of slips in a little easy, but it's not really going to fall out. I don't want to push it in. It just seemed to be difficult to do and possibly break. With my Dremel tool, fits pretty good all along these places, and I got to get it square and make sure my hole is centered. So I'll now carefully go through and drill all the holes at once and then add my nails in afterwards. Looks like the stern's going to be easier to reach these with my Dremel, but at the bow is a little bit tougher. And then when I put all the nails in, I'll go for the top rail. So I've pre-drilled all these holes all the way around both sides of the boat, and I'm in the process of putting these nails in, and I push an individual nail in the hole. And I've got these nylon coated pliers, but they don't really open wide enough, and I'm afraid that they're at an angle, and I have a tendency to want to bend the nail or bend this. And so I received a comment from another nice fellow on another video I've made. It says, use electrical tape on pliers. Let me zoom out here a little bit. So I covered my pliers with electrical tape, and you know what? It works really good. There, I had to do that standing up, a little bit awkward. And I'm going to go through and repress all these down, but press these down. But I think that's so much better than using a hammer and risking dinging or denting something.
Well, we got a lot done this video. We got all the deck planking done, the inner bulwarks, the Timberheads, the internal rail, the cap rails, and we got the stern and bow brackets, and we even got a little bit of extra here with the superstructure. So with that, I think we're done for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. God bless you all, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.